The police, they're supposed to be there to protect and serve. If your house is being broken into, the ideal would be that the police could be called upon to then get to your home, stop that intruder, and they're allowed to use violence to do that. That's the ideal. Doesn't end up always being that way. And then you have the more recent example of the Uvalde school shooting, where they were so incompetent and allowed for so much death of innocent children and teachers because they were just horribly managed and all scared and not equipped for the job at all in their training. Just the inaction, the dereliction of duty that happened there that allowed for so much needless death. So clearly, police in this country are not living up to what people would like them to be and are not living up to the amount of power that they're given. You know, they don't really do with it what they should by the people who literally pay their paychecks through their taxpayer dollars. So even in our contemporary United States, police are on the downswing when it comes to approval rating, as is the military, as is the government broadly. That kind of incompetence we're talking about is very present in the One Piece world as well. Hello, I am once again asking you for your putting up with me talking about One Piece. I've actually done a better Bernie Sanders impression in the past, and that was not it, I have to tell you. We're talking about One Piece again today, and reason being, because I'm still watching it. You know, shockingly, last time I talked about it in the Impel Down arc, that was like 400 and some episodes into the show, I have not made it to the end of the 1,000 plus episode anime yet. I just don't watch media like that. I don't like binge watching media. I watch like 2 episodes a day, maybe more, you know, sometimes. It's a good-ass anime. I'm a big fan of it. And I was watching it today, so I've obviously gotten a little bit further into the story from the last time we watched it, which if you haven't seen that video, it's about the pro-trans politics and pro-queer politics broadly in One Piece, which I thought is really cool. I'm a big fan of it. I think it's a good video as well. So you could watch that. I have now moved on to the Marineford arc, which is what takes place after Impel Down. So obviously, if you haven't seen One Piece yet and you intend to and you don't want to be spoiled, then you probably shouldn't watch this video. If you don't intend to watch One Piece, you should still, you know, take a moment to reconsider why you have bad taste in media and maybe come around to actually watching it. You know, it's a bit of a daunting project, but if you decide to use a filler list like I have, you could actually watch not all 1,091 episodes, but a little under 1,000 because there are only 94 reported filler episodes. And it's a very low filler rate of like 9%, which is actually incredibly low, especially as compared to proportionally per capita Naruto and other anime. I've been watching like 2 to 3, sometimes more episodes a day. I started watching it like 3 or more months ago. More than that, I think. Anyway, I was watching it today, and this thought just crossed my mind, so I figured I would talk about it. So, spoilers are beginning. Once again, if this is your final warning, if you be careful. So, at this point in the story that I'm at, we're at Marineford. This is the main base for the Marine, which are like the Navy. They're essentially the military arm of the world government, the front-facing police of the world in One Piece. In the show, they're often shown as the bad guys, and that's for obvious reason, because Luffy, if you didn't know, the protagonist of the show, the happy-go-lucky, very loyal, kind of stupid, but very powerful main character, is a pirate. He's always wanted to be a pirate. He's a pirate now in the show, and he's, you know, making his way up to his ultimate goal of becoming the king of the pirates, finding the One Piece, should it be real or not. This big treasure that was left by the previous king of the pirates. So obviously, the Marine's job is to keep the pirates under control. And if Luffy's a pirate, then yeah, he's going to come up against the Marine. And they're going to serve as antagonists in the show and in the narrative because it's their job. Piracy is inherently illegal. The whole point of piracy is that you are not following the law or even societal norms that, you know, exist to maintain order for, you know, the people in the world of the society. You're actively going against that. You are doing illegal activities for whatever aims, right? There have been, even in our history, in our actual human history, there have been good and bad pirates. You know, the morality of these people and how their deeds were interpreted at the time are definitely, you know, subject to change depending on who you ask and how history has decided to cover them, and maybe even information we may not even know. But I talk about all this because I was really interested in the concept of how authority is kind of portrayed in One Piece because of that. I've talked about it before, you know, generally, and I've thought about this before as well. But this specific episode that I was watching today kind of made me think about it in a different way, in a way that I thought could be fun to talk about here. So I've talked in the previous video about how royalty is depicted in One Piece, and it's not very flatteringly. You know, Oda, the mangaka for One Piece, not a big fan of the idea of royalty or like that kind of hierarchy, it would seem, at least in the narrative that he's writing, maybe even in his real life. This is supposed to be one of the most powerful, revered people, a celestial dragon, in the One Piece world. And they're weak and ugly looking, and they're also like the actual epitome of evil. They're racist against fishmen, which are an actual race of people in the One Piece universe who are like as sentient as everybody else. They're recognized as like another race. They're essentially human plus fish put together. They're actually a lot stronger inherently than humans are, because they're effective both on the ground, on land, and in water. So obviously, in a world where it's all ocean, essentially, in One Piece, and, you know, a lot of the action is happening on the sea, that's a big benefit. They're racist to those guys. We find out that not all of the fishmen are bad, even though early on in the show, they become one of the major antagonists of the show. The celestial dragons also enslave people, not just, you know, fishmen, but anybody. They're shown as, like, the epitome of evil. Like, they're slavers. They don't care about anybody else. They require deference to them, even though they haven't really done anything. They're Nepo babies. They were born into their position. It's a commentary on royalty and the kind of authoritarianism that kings, queens, and feudalism and all that kind of shit provides, or has, I guess, in the world. And Oda doesn't seem to be a big fan of it, and he's kind of trying to show you that. And you're also not going to like them if you're watching the show, if you're in favor of the protagonist Luffy and his friends, anyway. They're pieces of shit. You know, here's them with one of the slavers. This guy is rolling around like on the back of a guy, like a literal human man who is carrying him like he's cattle. Shit ain't good. And they're relatively ugly. This one here is she's a prettier woman, but by and large, they're pretty ugly. But I wanted to now talk about the Marine, because they are essentially the military in this anime, and they're kind of like the world police. There's also the world government, which is, I guess, like federal bureaucrats. They have like their own little specialized teams that go out and do shit. But the Marine is under their, as far as I'm aware, the Marine is commanded by the world government. They take the orders from them. And there's obviously a hierarchy in that system as well. There's the Fleet Admiral Sengoku, who at this point in the show is seen as an antagonist. He's like the big guy, the final boss, as it were, because he's at the very top of this specific part of the government at the headquarters that we've gotten to. The whole reason, really quickly, why we're here is because Luffy has a brother named Ace. Ace has been captured by the Marine and is set to be executed. Luffy does not want his brother to be executed, so there's a whole fucking arc of him trying to find Ace, and eventually he gets to Marineford before Ace's execution. He's able to save Ace, in spite of all of the bad guys there in the Marine that are trying to stop him, with the help of what's known as the Whitebeard Pirates. Ace was a part of the Whitebeard Pirates. He was like the second commander. Like he was very important. He had a position of authority under this guy, Whitebeard, who coincidentally doesn't have a beard but a mustache. And this guy is like feared in the world. He's one of the closest people to potentially becoming the king of the pirates. All the normies don't like him. They're scared of him. So obviously he's not like a pure good character. I don't think any pirate could ever be, except for Luffy maybe. But he's better than a lot of others. He's like 20 feet tall. Well, there are giants in the anime too. You know, human beings, there's a whole range of different ways people can be in this anime. This guy's a fucking Giga Chad, by the way. He's huge. He's very strong. One of the 4 emperors of the sea. He has the ability to create earthquakes with the tremor fruit. He can literally level islands on his own. The fact that he hasn't done this to conquer the world is a testament to his character in that way. So Whitebeard is trying to rescue Ace as well. So now we're here. They've made it to Marineford. Massive battle ensues. A whole bunch of people are dying on either side. And then, yeah, Whitebeard protects islands instead. At least his name is, like, people are scared of it enough to keep people away from certain areas and, like, terrorizing certain areas. Like I said, I'm sure he's done bad shit. Obviously. He's a pirate. But he's big about family. He's big about, like, all the people under him being his family. And there's, like, major found family themes in the show because of that. He is Luffy's brother Ace's adopted father. There's a whole bunch of stuff there. It's very moving, very emotional, very cool. So the main resistance they get trying to save Ace is from 2 groups. There's the Marine, and you have the admirals and the vice admirals there and a bunch of the underlings. And then they have the 7 warlords of the sea, which are essentially pirates that like have arrangements with the government because they're so powerful and they can do whatever they want, but they also have to help out the government. And there's like a mutually beneficial agreement there because the government and the Marine couldn't take out those pirates. So they rather, if you can't beat them, join them, you know? Luffy and the Whitebeard pirates have to fight those people. So some of the big bad guys that we see that are presented as the bad guys, though depending on how you look at it, they could be the good guys because they're supposed to be. That's what they say. They say they're for justice. They say they're for keeping the peace. They say they're for protecting civilians, you know, protecting and serving. We got this guy who's kind of cool. You get? He's an Iceman. He had the ice fruit. His name is Aokiji. He's an admiral. He is so strong, he can literally freeze oceans. Very deep as well. It's very good for stopping pirates from getting to places. Because if you're on a boat and you don't have an icebreaker, it's going to be hard to do that. It's going to be hard to move. Then you have my favorite admiral, fucking Kizaru, who literally just looks like a Goodfellas Las Vegas casino owner. He's made of light. He's a light man. He has light speed abilities. He can transport around at the speed of light. Literally like a god. Like an insanely powerful man. And he's funny in that he ends all of his sentences and he speaks very slowly and he ends them in like a really drawn out way. And that's funny because he's really fast, except for in his personality and the way he talks. And I love it. I love this guy. He's so funny. And then you have Akainu, who is like Krakatoa from SpongeBob SquarePants, Squidward. He is a magma man, volcano man. And he can turn into magma and all this kind of shit. Coincidentally, Ace is a fireman. He's made of fire. He can do all kinds of shit with it. All these people are strong as hell, right? So they're tasked with stopping Ace from being rescued by Luffy and the Whitebeard pirates. They need to execute Ace as a show of force to the world to show that the Marine are nothing to fuck with and they have control and they're surely not a corrupt agency that are doing all kinds of shady shit in the background and actually doing a lot of evil shit in the world, much less the world government who commands them, who are also surely not very corrupt and doing bad shit at all times. And that's not to say they don't do any good in the world. They definitely do, because there are a lot of evil pirates out there that the Marine actually does, you know, help people against. Much the same way that, you know, all the pirates, there's a dichotomy there as well. There's shades of gray. There's good pirates like Luffy and the gang who go around liberating oppressed people, essentially, throughout the show. And then there's bad pirates like this fucking rat, this piece of shit dickhead, who was formerly a Whitebeard pirate who killed one of his crewmates, which is like a cardinal sin in the Whitebeard pirates, because you're killing family at that point. He goes on to become one of the main antagonists in the show as well. I hate him. The show does a really good job of making you hate him. And he's obviously evil. Look at him. There are people in the show that look very evil that don't end up being. This is not one of them, as far as I'm aware. Like I say, I'm just about getting out of the Marineford arc. He's a bad dude. You know, Corncob was a bad dude. So I give you all this exposition to talk about the thing I want to talk about, which is how authority is presented in this show. By positioning a anti-government extremist terrorist, Luffy, as being the good guy in the show, well then obviously what people would expect to be the good guys in real life, like, you know, the police, the military, the government, they're fighting for your freedom, they're protecting and serving, allegedly, on paper, your results may vary. They're seen as really bad people. Like, these are seen as the bad guys. They're getting in the way of Luffy. They're getting in the way of all of his friends. They're stopping him from achieving his goal of being the king of pirates, and attempting to stop him from going around and liberating a bunch of oppressed peoples. He liberates a bunch of oppressed peoples in Alabasta, which is a kingdom in a desert, and helps them. He liberates a bunch of oppressed people in Nami's hometown that's currently under the thumb of evil fishmen pirates. Like, essentially, everything Luffy does in the show is not because, like, he's got, like, an ideological reason for doing it. Like, he's not, like, a revolutionary, theory-read, Marxist, anarchist in that way. He's just doing what he thinks is right and is trying to protect his friends and people he likes. And he just happens to be good every time he's doing that. So, like, he'll happen upon an area in search of the One Piece, and he'll find that one of these dickheads or somebody else is, like, needlessly evil to a group of people. And he's like, well, that's not good. He becomes friends with some of the people that are getting oppressed by the evil person in the story. And he's like, okay, well, I'm going to team up with you and help you because this shit is fucked up. I don't like it. I think bad people are bad. I'm for good things and against bad things. And he ends up just doing a lot of good in the world because of that. And he ends up racking up a big bounty from the Marine and the world government because of that. He becomes a very prolific bad guy in the eyes of the Marine, of the world government, and the broader world at that point, because a lot of the normies aren't a big fan of pirates for obvious reasons. You know, they're kind of wanting the status quo. They're okay with the Marine, even though the Marine also does a lot of bad shit to the civilian population, as does the world government. He ends up being like persona non grata number one, Luffy. You know, Luffy ends up, because of the incompetence of the world government, you know, and the help that gave him, destroying the major judicial hub and, like, center of the Marine, where the worst of the worst criminals go to be tried in the justice system through a corrupt system or not. You know, who's to say? The morality of these things are up for your interpretation and how these works and the decisions made by the world government. He ends up destroying that, not because he's an anti-government extremist by his nature, like ideologically, not because he hates the Marine or the world government because he's anti-authoritarian explicitly, but because one of his friends was captured by the Marine and was going to be sentenced essentially to life in prison and or death at this place called Enies Lobby. And because of that, he ended up going there and helped lead to its destruction, simply to save one of his friends, Nico Robin, my queen, who unfortunately ends up getting demelanated later on in the anime. And I don't know why that happens, and it makes me sad every time. She's so pretty. I don't know why they did her dirty like that. Look at my absolute queen. Here's a comparison. She goes from this Mediterranean-looking, darker-skinned woman, who's like clearly not as busty either, and then later on in the show, post-time skip or something, they demelanate her. They keep the nose a little bit, which is nice at least. We stand a beaked woman. And they give her like these massive bazongas. I don't know why they did this, man. It's so fucked up. Look at how they massacred my queen. Why did they demelanate her in this way? It's fucked up. Anyway. Luffy, you know, wants to save her from the Marine and the world government. So he takes part in the destruction of the judicial hub for that. And what I want to get to now is, once again, how authority is presented in One Piece. I want to talk about how One Piece displays incompetency in authority. And I think Enies Lobby is a good way to do that. What I wanted to talk about here was about the Marineford arc, but now that I think about it, that's also a good one to talk about. Essentially, the main bad guy in the Enies Lobby arc is this really dumb, like, nepotism leader, commander at that location. And because he's really stupid, not this guy, it's another guy, I forget his name, he ends up essentially calling for the Marine and the world government to bombard Enies Lobby and completely destroy it by using what's called a buster call, which is essentially the absolute might of the world government and the Marine, all in one location, just absolutely obliterating whatever the target is. They've done this to islands before and, like, literally erased entire islands from the map by doing this. Usually not for good reasons. And because he accidentally makes this call, because of the chaos that Luffy and the gang are bringing to Enies Lobby in order to save a single friend of theirs, Nico Robin, you know, Luffy ends up getting all the credit and the Straw Hat Pirates get all the credit for destroying Enies Lobby, but it was actually the ineptitude of the world government and the Marine that led to that destruction. If it was up to Luffy and the gang, like, shit would still get fucked up, don't get me wrong. Because, you know, you gotta crack a few eggs to make an omelet to save your friend from indefinite imprisonment. But, like, it wouldn't have been as bad. But Enies Lobby is effectively destroyed because of that buster call. And I find that really funny. Because not only are now the Marine and the world government, who, if you were to analogize them to the police, the military, and the governments of whatever country you're in, those groups of authority are usually seen as a good guy. They're usually seen as being there to protect you, to help you. Now, of course, in our world, especially in the United States of America, the government seems to end up helping the rich and the wealthy more. You know, they end up helping the celestial dragons a bit more than your average Joe. They, you know, cut taxes on the wealthy. They deregulate multinational corporation. They make it harder for workers to unionize. They don't pass minimum wages. They get in the way of canceling student loan debt. You know, the government in the current moment in our life historically, in the US, not seen as the good guys so much, but they could be, and historically they have actually done some good things. It's not all good stuff, obviously, but, you know, the social security system is pretty good. And then you get to the police, where the police in the United States of America, they're supposed to be there to protect and serve. They're supposed to be underneath you and servile to you as an average citizen, because they're the people who are given the ability to enact violence on other people in the defense of others that are being aggressed upon. So, for instance, if your house is being broken into by a person who wishes to do you or your family harm, the ideal would be that the police could be called upon to then get to your home, stop that intruder, and they're allowed to use violence to do that. Because sometimes that's the only way you can stop somebody from intruding on the house and hurting people inside of it. That's the ideal. Doesn't end up always being that way. You know, we see the massive protests in 2020 after the brutal killing of George Floyd in like open public view that led to all manner of protests for, you know, an end to police brutality. That's the main thing. We don't like police brutality. I don't think police should be able to brutalize people just because they have a badge. I think that's bad. I don't know why we give the police so much money if that's what they're going to do with it, right? And they're not generally the best at their job to begin with either. It seems like if you look at a lot of these cases of police being called, say somebody's house is getting broken into, they usually just show up a little bit too late, especially if you're in a lower income area, and they're just there to make a report about it and maybe catch the guy after they've already left. The damage has already been done, they're just there to write a report about it, do some book work, and maybe find the guy later on. It's not as often that they're called to a location and get there and stop the culprit and arrest them, because they can't literally be everywhere at all times. You have to move in a direction to get to that area. So usually when, like, holy shit, hello, police, somebody's breaking into my home, they're already getting into your home at that point, unless the police are literally down the block. It's going to take some time for them to get there. So, like, just in concept, like, physically, this isn't as possible as people would like it to be in an ideal system. And then you have the more recent example of the Uvalde school shooting, where they were so incompetent and allowed for so much death of innocent children and teachers in that school because they were just horribly managed and all scared and not equipped for the job at all mentally and in their training. And it's actually a lot worse than what we thought it was when it was happening. A recent report has come out that showed it is much worse than that. You know, all of the mistakes that were made, if you could even call them mistakes in a lot of instances, just the inaction, the dereliction of duty that happened there that allowed for so much needless death. Like, so clearly, police in this country are not living up to what people would like them to be, and are not living up to the amount of power that they're given. You know, they don't really do with it what they should by the people who literally pay their paychecks through their taxpayer dollars. So even in our contemporary United States, police are on the downswing when it comes to approval rating, as is the military for the United States of America, as is the government broadly. That kind of incompetence we're talking about is very present in the One Piece world as well. So I already gave you the example of the dipshit who accidentally called a Buster call in because he was terrible at his job and maintaining order at this heavily fortified location where a single band of pirates of like 8 people were able to show up and wreak havoc to rescue their one friend. The entire thing gets destroyed because of that. And now we get to Marineford. Like, Impel Down, what I talked about before, essentially like the Alcatraz of prisons in the One Piece world. There's only ever been one person who's escaped. Nobody's ever gotten into it. And now Luffy's actually able to infiltrate it with the help of one other person, as the first ever person to do it, and then breaks out a whole bunch of different people trying to find his brother Ace, who was held there, to stop him from getting executed. And then the mismanagement of that very fascist, like, they literally just look like fascists. They like Domino One Piece. Like, they're wearing Nazi outfits. These are the bad guys, the prison wardens of this maximum security prison. Like, look at the main warden. He literally looks like a demon. And they wear very fascist-looking outfits. They're not good guys. They're horrible to the prisoners there. Some would say actually more brutal to the prisoners there than prison guards and whatnot are to prisoners in our world, in the United States of America, in the country I live in. Somehow more brutal to the prisoners in Impel Down than United States prison wardens and guards. Shockingly, worse conditions for these people. They end up breaking out a bunch of people, and because of the mismanagement of this location, the entirety of Impel Down is like in shambles. It's not like completely destroyed like Enies Lobby was, but it's like it's in disrepair. It's in disrepair. A whole bunch of really powerful and in many ways dangerous prisoners escaped because of it. A lot of bad guys, of course. Even previous antagonists for Luffy in the show, main enemies that we see, are there and are broken out at the same time and also help Luffy in those aims. Not because, you know, they've turned over a new leaf, but rather they see an opportunity and they have a common enemy that is the Marine and the world government, and in this specific instance, the people in positions of power in this prison. So they're like, okay, I'll help you out, even though I literally tried to kill you in the past. I am evil, by the way, but we have a common goal here, so we're going to try to get out of here, and I'm going to help you, using my powers that are very helpful for that. Also, Luffy would have died in this arc, literally, if not for the power of trans people, so that's pretty cool. Big fan of that. And I should say queer people broadly. So there's a lot of incompetence for authority there. There's a lot of incompetence for authority in our world as well. Like the Iraq War is a very famous example. We were supposed to go there because apparently Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. Turned out they didn't. It turned out we only went there for oil and strategic geopolitical influence. And we didn't even succeed at that. We lost countless American lives, which are obviously the only lives that Americans care about and the military cares about. And also ruined the life for, maimed, and killed countless innocent civilians in Iraq. Wasted so much taxpayer dollars in a country that can't even allow for people to go to the doctor without going bankrupt. Like the mismanagement of our government, of our economy, and of our positions of authority are reflected pretty well by the One Piece world. Like, I don't even have to lay it on too thick. I hope I'm not, because I don't really need to. It's very obvious what's being said here. Oda, the mangaka, not a big fan of the government, not a big fan of authority, not a big fan of bad guys that are given authority that shouldn't have it. Which then brings me to the current arc in this ramble, Marineford. Marineford is literally Marine HQ. It is the most fortified location the Marine has. They have Luffy's brother Ace there. They're going to execute him. One, because he's one of the most powerful pirates in the world at the time, who has a leadership position under the most powerful pirate in the world, Whitebeard. Also, because of, lore reasons, he happens to be the son of the previous king of the pirates, Goldie Roger, who was thought, people didn't think that Goldie Roger had kids out there, because the world government and the Marine actually went out and executed a whole bunch of people who were thought to potentially be related to Goldie Roger. And they executed a bunch of innocent people in that process as well, just out of speculation. Like, oh, you might be a suspected Goldie Roger supporter or potentially family member, so we're just going to kill you. Just be safe, Better safe than sorry. Turns out they fucked up. Their own incompetence once again led them to allowing Ace to live, who was able to survive and go on to, be the figure he is at this point in the show. So that's also why the Marine wants to get rid of him, because they want to hide that failure in the eyes of the public from, the Marine's legacy by killing him, because obviously allowing an heir, a literal blood son of the previous king of the pirates whom they executed in the past, in a major dub for the Marine, would be a big L, So then we move on to Marineford, and the incompetence of the admirals and whatnot here. Obviously, there's a lot of cartoon logic happening here. Essentially, these three dudes alone could absolutely level the opposition that they have, which are the Whitebeard pirates, their allies, and Luffy. They absolutely could if they were good at their jobs. They wouldn't stand a chance. Just these three dudes combined, not even, the rest of the powerful people on the side of the Marine and the world government. These three dudes combined could probably level the entirety of their opposition. But they're fucking stupid. And they make so many mistakes. And you could say the same about the Whitebeard pirates, and that's also true. There's a lot of mistakes made there as well, and obviously nothing is ever going to be super perfect when it comes to how anybody's going to engage with this. Even in historical battles, where there's a very clear and obvious good versus bad, there are mistakes being made on both sides, for sure. So it's not unrealistic in that way. But given the fact that these people have, world-ending abilities, and the only reason they don't destroy the world is because vibes, they're kept in check because of the world government, who we assume have a lot of muscle that keep them in check. They abuse their power like a motherfucker. It's not even clear to me that they got the position of power they have in terms of political power through actually being good at their jobs. They're just really strong. So the Marine's okay, well, I'd rather have this really strong guy on my side, even if he's going to be a piece of shit asshole and abuse his power, than against me. If you can't beat him, join him. We're dealing with power level scaling to such a degree that that's a consideration that's being made. And it's not a bad one necessarily for the Marine, right? So up until this point, we see this guy Blackbeard. We see him, and he's a piece of shit. We know he's a bad guy. We know he's a bad pirate. We don't know his affiliations past that. He's just kind of his own guy, his own pirate, and he's bad. He's evil. He has the dark fruit. He can literally make black holes and suck people up. And devil fruit powers, like these dudes, can't do anything to him because he just absorbs those powers as well and can actually shoot them back at them. He's really strong. He's got a strong-ass ability that we find out later on. He ends up actually capturing Ace, delivering Ace to the Marine in order to become one of the 7 warlords of the sea, which are the state-sanctioned pirates that are supposed to operate under the command of the world government and the Marine, but are allowed to do their own thing as pirates as well because they're so powerful. And then he ends up going against the Marine later on turncoating really quickly after using the absolute fucking calamity at Impel Down, capitalizing on the opportunity of Luffy trying to break Ace out of there and causing all of that disturbance, and ends up freeing a whole bunch of mega powerful people that were previously prisoners to join him and his gang in his bid for, as it would turn out, world domination. This guy is bad. He wants to be king of the pirates for bad reasons, because he wants to rule over the world as an authoritarian leader. And because the Marine couldn't figure this out beforehand, he's able to get in this position of power. The only reason he's able to get into Impel Down is because he's a warlord of the sea. And that's the Marines' fault for not doing their research and, doing a background check on this guy. And he ends up coming back in Marineford after Ace is saved by Luffy and the gang, and once again takes advantage of that situation and attacks the Marine as well. And it's interesting to me, and why this came up in my mind, is that he's not on the side of Luffy. He's actually directly antagonistic to Luffy. He sees Luffy as a means to an end. He sees Luffy's, attempts to free Ace from Impel Down and then Marineford as a way to solidify his own power and use that chaos in that way. It's very smart if you are trying to maneuver your way into this position of power. The Marine and the world government, if you're bent on world domination, is going to stand in your way for that, because they are the ones who currently dominate the world. They're the big fish in the pond that you're going to have to take out if you want to be at the very top, which Blackbeard very obviously does. So, because of that incompetency within the Marine, within the world government, he's able to angle his way into this position, and he starts attacking Marineford as well. At this point, the Marine has essentially completed its goal. Not in the way they wanted to, but obviously it's been spoilers this whole time. Ace ends up dying, not in the actual ritualistic execution way that the Marine wanted, but he ends up dying in combat after being freed. In a really fucking stupid way, by the way, and I hate him for it. Literally because he's a stupid-ass, essentially, kid. He's like 20, 21, who's to say? Luffy's 18, he's a couple years older than Luffy, so he's still immature and stupid. So many people are maimed and dead trying to save Ace, Luffy's brother, in the Whitebeard Pirates. And then this fucking guy essentially walks up to him after Ace has been freed from his anti-devil fruit chains. He's able to use his abilities now. He can fly. He can cause untold destruction. He's so strong, even though he's like malnourished and fucked up from being in prison for so long. He's still strong enough to hold his own. And then this dude, when they're about to leave, this dude's like, yo, Ace, I'm from the Marine. I'm your enemy. Whitebeard, your dad, he's kind of a little bitch. And so are you. And that's enough for Ace to turn around and be like, what the fuck did you say to me? You son of a bitch, I'll have you know. I've got 8,000 confirmed kills in the Marine guerrilla forces. And he ends up trying to attack him. Then he gets fucked up by Krakatoa. Krakatoa, after doing substantial damage to Ace, goes to attack Luffy as well, because he's also, a big enemy of the Marine right now. He tries to kill Luffy, Akainu does. Ace gets in the way of that, gets a hole punched through his chest, gets his vital internal organs burned out, and is dying. And then eventually just dies in Luffy's arms. Literally, yeah, killed by a taunt. And that's fine for it to happen, but holy shit, what was it all for, man? All of this bloodshed and effort and fighting from the Whitebeard Pirates and Luffy to save your dumb ass, and because you're a stupid-ass 20-year-old kid, you die to a taunt. You get talk no jutsu'd into your own death. It's so unsatisfying, and that's fair enough. I'm mad as hell, not because it's like dumb and I don't think it should have happened, but like I'm thinking about it in this way, and it's like, that's you fucking idiot, Ace. Why would you do this? You fucked it all up, man. So that's W number 1 for the Marine. Now, W number 2 is killing Whitebeard, the strongest pirate in the world at this time. They end up doing that. They succeed in that mission as well. Whitebeard dies here without, going out with a good-ass fight. Bro has literal 2 holes in his body at the end of this. Where is he? Where's this fucking Giga Chad? He's got literally a massive hole in his chest and his, abdomen, and he's still able to make shit happen. He's still able to fight, hold his own against untold numbers of Marine people, even admirals, like the strongest the Marine has to offer. And he uses his earthquake powers to almost level Marineford. So that's dub number 2. He gets killed. He dies. So the Marine has essentially accomplished its goal, right? Except there's one 18-year-old kid that they have not killed yet. He might as well be dead. They know he might as well be dead. They know there's a chance he survives. But at this point, Luffy is unconscious. They're trying to, Ivankov, the aforementioned transgender who can change people's genders at will and sexes at will, who saves him, and without her, him, they, goes by he, him pronouns in the show, would be dead and impelled down, and also in Marineford. Tries to save him, then this other cool guy, Fishman Jimbei, tries to save him as well. So at this time, like, I feel like Marineford and the Marine there, like, you already won. Ace died, and so did the strongest pirate in the world, Whitebeard. Now all you have to do is not be completely humiliated in the eyes of the world. It's already looking pretty bad. Like, there are people here. It's like there's a camera that shows people in the outside world what the fuck's going on. A transponder snail. Because apparently snails are just really powerful in that way. They can be used as telephones. They can be used as cameras. It's crazy what they can do. We stand the snail. The humble snail. Like, the world government and the Marine are already humiliated because of enies lobby. And now they're humiliated because of the absolute brouhaha that happens at Marineford. So at this point, like, goal number one, after accomplishing killing Whitebeard and Ace, would be to save face and try to at least maintain an image of, it was a dirty job, but we got it done to the public. But then this fucking guy shows up, deals the final blow to Whitebeard, and then apparently steals Whitebeard's power. So not only did he have this insane power where he can create black holes, and devil fruit powers don't work on him. He has one of the most powerful devil fruit powers in the world. He is somehow able to steal Whitebeard's power and use both. So now on one hand, literally, he's got the black hole power, and on the other hand, he's got the earthquake power. He could literally destroy the planet with his two hands. And he's very obviously bent on world domination. He's not a good guy. He is evil aligned, chaotic evil at that. So this is the word. This is a bad guy. And the Marine sees him, and the fleet admiral Sengoku is trying to fight him and stop him from destroying Marineford. And Blackbeard's like, nah, I'm gonna destroy Marineford actually, because I'm gonna be the king of the world and the pirates. So in my mind, strategically speaking, and they have the transponder snails. They can call each other up, all the admirals and whatnot, be like, yo, shit's popping off. Get the fuck over here. Blackbeard is going sicko mode. He could literally destroy the world. But no. Aokiji, Iceman, is like, no, I'm actually going to hang out in the ocean and freeze it so that the white-beard pirates, the ones that are still alive and not maimed, can escape. I'm going to do that. And that's, he has the best reason for being in that position and not defending Marineford from a world-ending threat, like an apocalypse-level threat in Blackbeard, with two of the most powerful devil fruit powers in his possession. By the way, people normally can't have two devil fruit powers, so it is anomalous, and in that way, even more dangerous that he does and is able to use both in this moment. So, like, that's threat level, like, unheard of. Like, never before seen level of threat. We've never seen anything as... Believe me, folks, it's never been as threatening anybody in the world until literally this moment. Aokiji stopping everybody from escaping, and then in that way, potentially also stopping the Blackbeard pirates from escaping by freezing the ocean around Marineford, that's fair play. He actually has a good reason to be there. This fucking dickhead, on the other hand, I guess is a bit of a hothead, a bit of a blowhard, Krakatoa or Jogo from Jujutsu Kaisen, if he was a little bit more attractive than he already is in that anime, if that is his name, the volcano guy in that one. Volcano Man here is so in his bag and in his feelings about Ace almost escaping and the humiliation that brought, and is so hell-bent on killing not only Ace and Whitebeard, but now Luffy, who is essentially on death's door already. This guy who can literally rain hell from the sky and level entire islands on his own through his volcano powers is like, no, dude. I've probably been told that Blackbeard is over here, and he's about to destroy the world, but I'm really curious about this 18-year-old child who is essentially already dead. I need to kill him with my own hands. So, apocalypse-level threat, that can wait. I'm gonna go over here and allow this Blackbeard guy to just do whatever he's doing. And it's the same for fucking Kizaru. It's when he's not managing casinos in a Martin Scorsese flick, he's just dicking around. He can move at the speed of light. He is light man. He is made of light. He can move at the speed of light, and bro is just dicking around like, oh, I'm just gonna fuck around with Luffy as well. Haha, Lamau. This guy, he's got potential to be really bad. Never mind the apocalyptic threat over here. I could literally be over at Blackbeard and then back over to Luffy in the blink of an eye at the speed of light. But nah, I'm just gonna dick around over here and look cool as hell doing it, at least. And be a really funny character, and just be, like, massively incompetent. And the reason why, like, I get so heated about this is obviously one, because I'm pro Luffy, okay? I'm pro the good guy in the story. I know that's crazy. I know that's a bit of a wild take. I like to be against the grain here. I am pro the good guy of the story, Luffy. So these guys getting in the way, going to kill Luffy's brother, ended up killing Luffy's brother, almost killing Luffy and all of his friends. Not a big fan of that. And Whitebeard, who we come to like a lot in the show. The show tries to make you sympathize with him a lot. And he dies as well. So, like, obviously, like, I'm not a big fan of the Marine already, and I haven't been since the beginning of the show. One of the first major enemies that Luffy faces is literally a commander of some Marine outpost. So, like, I'm already not liking these guys. That's been the case. Blackbeard, on the other hand, like, there have been other evil pirates out there, but he's kind of been like a question mark. We meet him a little bit. We don't actually know much about him. Eventually, he ends up capturing Ace, and that fight is when we really see that he is not pro-Luffy, and in that way cringe. So I don't like this guy either. I'm not a big fan of this guy. But up until this point, it's just been the Marine I don't like. They're the main bad guys in the story. But now, the reason why this entire segment idea popped into my head is that this guy is like a third party. He is the bad guy in the eyes of the audience, not only to Luffy, but also to the Marine and the world government, because he wants to topple them and become king of the world. So at this point, both Luffy and the good guys in the world don't like Blackbeard. And then the Marine and the world government, who don't like Luffy, also don't like Blackbeard, because he's trying to topple them and take their power. So, like, there's a common enemy here. And the audience sees that. The audience is like, yeah, I don't like Blackbeard. I don't like the Marine either. Seems like Blackbeard is getting really strong, though. It seems like he could literally turn the world inside out and kill everybody and himself, unless he's able to somehow survive in space, which he might be able to. He's got black hole powers. Who's to say? We might not like each other, you know, Luffy and the Whitebeard pirates, the Marine. We might not like each other, but this Blackbeard guy is a threat to both of us. This is a mutual enemy that we have. Perhaps we let our differences go to the wayside and, you know, deal with that later, because the Marine and the world government have already shown they can do that by having the 7 warlords, by having pirates so powerful that they end up, you know, if you can't beat them, join them with them, and give them a whole bunch of power with the promise that they don't try to fuck up the world government and the Marines' power. Like, they're capable of that kind of logical thinking. So, like, I'm mad as hell that this dickhead, this absolute fucking rat, is allowed to get so popular and isn't struck down. Like, bro literally almost gets killed by Whitebeard when Whitebeard is riddled with bullets. They even show in the anime, they're like, bro has got like 57 cannonball shells to the face. He's got 8,000 stab wounds. He's got so many bullets. He's got literally gaping holes in his chest and abdomen. And he's still literally almost able to kill this guy, literally on his last legs, standing upright purely through his reptilian brain and absolute raw power. So, in my mind, if these fucking 3 dickheads, or at least 2 of them, or if at least one of them showed up and helped Sengoku out with trying to stop this guy from becoming supreme god king of the world, they'd probably be able to do it, considering a essentially already dead Whitebeard almost did it on his own. But they're not doing it. Instead, they're dicking around with Luffy, trying to kill him, trying to kill a fucking 18-year-old rookie pirate, all because of their own pride. That's the only reason I can think. One, their incompetence and the fact that they're very stupid, as are almost all positions of authority in the show, pirates included. But also, because they're so prideful and they hate Luffy so much because he's brought so much humiliation to the Marine and the world government and the admirals and their name generally. Like, Luffy is delegitimizing the Marine and the world government in the eye of the public as well by fucking them up as a rookie 18-year-old pirate. I can understand the motivations and the reasons why your emotions would get the better of you and you would not make the pragmatic choice of just letting Luffy escape and killing this absolute demon from hell. I can understand that, but you would hope that people in positions of authority wouldn't allow themselves to be so emotional and would think more logically about the situation and make the pragmatic decision of, okay, well, how about we kill the living nuclear bomb that could level the entirety of this planet and then some? How about we take care of that guy before he gets powerful enough to do that, instead of worrying about like a literal dying 18-year-old who's a stretchy rubber man, who isn't evil. He's just kind of bad in the eyes of the government because he's against Luffy, ends up getting in the way of a lot of evil shit the government want, and the Marine wants to do. For real, though, this is why men can't be in positions of power. They're too emotional. They have one bad day, you know, you tell them that, you know, they have a small penis and that their stroke game is weak. Their stroke game is just not what it's supposed to be. You insult their mother, and then they just can't make rational decisions. They can't do it. They're too emotional. Like, it's just not possible. And I don't know, I just found that really interesting. And I was like, actually mad about it. Like, why are they letting this absolute rat who has betrayed Whitebeard, who has betrayed Ace, who has betrayed Luffy in that way by betraying Ace, by being the reason why Ace is even captured by the Marine and then set to be executed, this absolute fucking pig dog rat. I hate him. I hate his guts. The show wants me to hate his guts. I don't like the Marine either, but he's not a nuclear bomb set to destroy the Earth and everybody in it, because I would like to continue enjoying the One Piece show. If he's allowed to do that, then I can't. There's no more One Piece for me to watch. The show's over. So how about you get your heads out of your asses, stop dicking around, though Aokiji, you're okay. You know, you being there makes a lot of sense, because you can simultaneously stop Blackbeard from escaping, and also the Whitebeard pirates. You can kill those two birds with one stone. You don't get as much smoke. These two, on the other hand, what are you doing, man? And I think that's actually really interesting. It's interesting that the narrative of the show is making me feel this way. Because it's a very common theme for media and stories to be like, okay, you know, here's the bad guys, the Marine. They stand in the way of Luffy because Luffy's a pirate. So they're the bad guys. Makes sense. Okay, then there's a third party who doesn't like either of them. Doesn't like Luffy, doesn't like the Marine and the world government. A mutual enemy of both Luffy and the aforementioned primary enemy to Luffy. So as a viewer, it's like, okay, I fucking hate this guy. And it makes you think about, like, how you've been interpreting the Marine up until this point. It makes you think about how you've been interpreting Luffy and the Straw Hat Pirates and Whitebeard, because now Blackbeard is here, the wild card, the third party who doesn't like either of them, and is substantially more evil than both of them somehow. Obviously more evil than Luffy, but even the world government and the Marine, he's even more evil than those motherfuckers. And those people are the evil guys in the show. Obviously with, like, moral gray areas and whatnot, but I'm speaking in generalizations here for the sake of the segment. So it's like, what are you doing? And funnily enough, it makes me hate the Marine more. Like, I came away from that episode, and like the ones preceding it and the subsequent ones to it, hating the Marine more, and hating the world government more. Not just because they're the bad guys, because they stand in the way of Luffy, the protagonist, the good guy in the show, but also because they're so fucking stupid and bad at their job and not good at wielding the power that they're given, that this fucking rat can show up and just upend the whole thing and pose a threat not only to the people I already hate, but to the people I like. Like, if you're gonna be in this position, you might as well do your fucking job correctly, but you can't even do that. So I hate you even more now. And I don't know, I mean, this show's not political at all, is what I mean to say with all this. Not an ounce of politics in this show. The idea that Luffy is an anti-government extremist terrorist, I'm not trying to say that. I don't think that's true, obviously. I don't think I've put forward an argument, a very substantive and obvious and literally by definition argument for why that's the case. And he's still seen as the good guy in the show, even though that is the case, which I'm not saying. It's not a political show at all. I don't know. It was just funny to me. I just thought it was interesting. Like, I was talking to myself about it because I found the concept interesting in terms of like narratives and the analogies you can make to the world I live in. Because unfortunately or fortunately, I don't live in the world of One Piece. If I did, I would hope I'd be a main character or at least a side character. But it's overwhelmingly likely that I'd probably just be some dumbass civilian that would get rolled over, not even given screen time. I would just be like in the explosion of a city. I just happen to be in one of those buildings, you know, and your mom dies next to me in bed, and that's just the way my life goes in One Piece. But if that wasn't the case, I would hope I'd be a main character or a side character and have a cool ability. So I'm literally watching One Piece. I'm eating food right now. I'm taking my time to not eat that food right now to record this because I feel like I'll forget it otherwise. So it turns out, you know, fast forward in my terrible retelling of the story thus far, Whitebeard is dead, obviously. Blackbeard is, you know, kind of taken over as the major thorn in the Marine and world government side, and everybody else's for that matter. Turns out the Marine and Blackbeard decide to go their separate ways because Blackbeard is not in the greatest shape after almost nearly getting killed by an already dead Whitebeard. So, you know, the admirals, if they all focused their might on killing Blackbeard there, could have saved themselves a lot of pain and heartache in the future, but it turns out that's not really in their priorities list because they'd rather go after a dying 18-year-old. So, now that that's happened, it would turn out that, you know, as you can see here, this dude's, I thought pirates would be afraid of us. That's how he sounds, too. I can't, you know, have you say it. After killing Whitebeard and snatching the victory. So, like, they're like, oh my god, I thought that killing the most powerful pirate in the world as the Marine would make people, the civilians, and also the pirates around, respect the Marine more. And, you know, they'd be more afraid of us because of that. And that would end up with us, you know, having a better shot at keeping the peace in the world, because that's ostensibly what we're supposed to be doing. Turns out that's not the case. Turns out things have gotten a lot worse, actually, since the Marine snatched victory. And places all over the world that takes place in the One Piece universe are getting ransacked by pirates. For a variety of reasons. One of the reasons, the main reason that the show tells you explicitly, is that Whitebeard in his dying breath said, "The One Piece is real!" And, that's a meme. And that's emboldened a whole bunch of pirates to go out and try to find it, fuck shit up. But the Marine is also completely, humiliated in the eyes of all the pirates. The civilians are, celebrating after they hear about Whitebeard's death. Ruben's popping off. After they hear about Whitebeard's death, they're like, oh, hell yeah, peace times are coming, great times ahead, wahoo, yahoo, wahoo. And then, as you could see here in this thumbnail of a children's toy on the ground with people running away in the background, doesn't seem like that's actually the case. So it seems like the veil is kind of lifting on the civilians of the One Piece world, that the Marine actually isn't as strong as it pretends to be, nor is it as good at keeping the peace and, protecting civilians against pirates and other threats, and serving the people of this world as it proclaims to be, as it kind of needs to be seen as in order to justify its monopoly on power and violence in this world. It turns out, as we could see here, after these pirates start raiding this area, we have these dudes show up to this place, and it has this, in Food Vaultin, a real name, definitely not just a vault for food, that there's this Whitebeard flag here, and it was said previously in the story that Whitebeard could protect a whole bunch of different islands from other, more violent and, more malicious pirates just by having his flag there, because the mere presence of the flag means that if you attack that area, you transgress against Whitebeard, the most powerful pirate in the world at that time, and you don't want to deal with that because even if you succeed in destroying Food Vaultin, he'll come for you and you'll not have a great time later on. So that's a good, deterrent for a lot of these places. And they would create deals with Whitebeard and his pirates because of that. Now, it's not to say that those deals were 100% altruistic and good on the side of the Whitebeard pirates. There might have been some extortion. There might have been some mob boss bullshit. But the peace was kept for the most part. And now it's not. Now all the pirates are running roughshod all over these previously safe areas, not just the ones that were under Whitebeard's domain, just generally, but in specific. It seems like, because of this, the threat of Whitebeard was enough to stop these pirates from ransacking Food Vaultin, and the threat of the Marine was not. If the threat of the reprisal from Whitebeard was enough to stop them from doing it, and merely his flag being there was enough to stop pirates from doing it, and it protected the civilians in this area, without them, now you do have to worry about the Marine as a pirate, but it seems like these pirates don't respect the Marine and the world government enough to care. Because obviously not. If the Marine and the world government were respected enough in the world, there would be no pirates. There would be no piracy. Everybody would just be falling in line under the thumb of the world government and the Marine. So clearly they already weren't respected. So the Marine's gambit of killing the most powerful pirate in the world at the time was kind of predicated on the idea that that would show everybody that the Marine is not to be fucked with, and it would keep all the pirates in check. Not only would the civilians still appreciate the Marine and show deference to them out of respect for them because of that, but the pirates would also respect their power and be afraid to transgress against them as well. And that would be the deterrent that the Marine and the world government would want for so-called keeping the peace, or, just maintaining their stranglehold on being the ultimate power in the world. But they massively blundered once again. I guess their internal polling was different from external polling on their approval rating. And it turns out that even if the civilians in the world, who are the powerless people, respect the Marine and are afraid of their power, the pirates very clearly don't. And that's very obvious because people are seeing Marine Fort get nearly destroyed by this great war between the Whitebeard pirates, the Marine, the world government, and Blackbeard at the end. So that's already an L. They kill Ace, they kill Whitebeard, that's a W in the eyes of civilians, and that could be scary to pirates. But then it turns out that merely Whitebeard in the final act of, his final act against the Marine, I guess, outside of nearly toppling their most fortified position and their most powerful and necessary position, was to say that the One Piece was real, and that emboldened a whole bunch of pirates to go out and try to find it. Much the same way that Goldie Roger being executed and saying that, I've left all this in one piece, and if you can get it, you will likely become the king of the pirates, was enough to embolden them then. It's kind of an echo of that now. And it's had the same effect. So their gambit was completely off because they completely misunderstood just how little pirates respect them. Like, why would these pirates care about your power if you were able to kill Whitebeard and the son of Goldie Roger if they already didn't? Like, I can see some pirate groups being like, okay, maybe I don't want to fuck with that. Maybe I got to get stronger first. But clearly they don't respect you enough already. And because of the absolute blundering of that war and the fact that you snatched defeat from the jaws of victory in that war, like, you've been delegitimized in the eyes of not only a bunch of civilians, but also the pirates more than you already were. Like, it was the stupidest idea possible. I can understand, like, the theory behind it, but it didn't work, and because of their own incompetence, it got even worse. It's become worse for not only the civilians of the world, which the Marine ostensibly, operates to protect and serve, but it's worse for the Marine as well because they have to, extend more forces. They have to go out and deal with all these pirates who are now emboldened because of the events of this war. They don't have as many forces they're complaining about here. There's a whole bunch of shit going on. They're stretched too thin. They can't deal with the actual new surge of pirates doing pirate shit, and it's their own fault. It's all because, they made a strategic error in their judgment when it came to executing Ace. Like, if you look at it through their eyes, that could be seen as a power play, but they already knew that Whitebeard was going to do something about it. And they should have been well aware of the amount of power that he had and the amount of power the people under his command had. But they completely misplayed and had the best home field advantage you could ever see in a battle, and bungled it, primarily because of one 18-year-old rubber man named Luffy. And then before this even, Impel Down gets destroyed, literally because of a single 18-year-old rubber man and his friends trying to save a singular one of their friends from this greatest judicial hub for the Marine and the world government. So it's very obvious that these dudes are stupid as hell. It's obvious as well that the pirates are not also, like, perfect either. They're not a replacement for the cops necessarily, even though Whitebeard kind of operated as that. But it seems like Whitebeard maintaining that power kept things a bit more peaceful, because it would turn out that pirates respect other pirates and the power of other pirates more than they respect the literal organization that is tasked with defeating the pirates. Shockingly, who could have expected that? Anyway, I just wanted to say that here and add that to the segment, because I feel like I didn't deliver a lot of these points as well as I could have, because I was, my brain was a little weird at that point. I was tired. My day was odd. It started weirdly. Nothing bad, just weird. I was kind of off my game, and I'm not used to talking about media in this way for the channel, so I just wanted to add this. Now I'm going to go back to eating my food, which is getting cold. For anybody who cares, it is basmati rice and chicken. It's not chicken tikka masala. Might be butter chicken. I completely forget. It's really good though. I don't know. I just thought it was neat. I thought it was fun. I thought it was a good time. I hope you enjoyed. I hope it wasn't too rambly. I hope I was able to explain things. I'm really bad at talking about media because I don't do it very often. I'm trying to get better at it. This is all improv as well. So, like, my improvisational skills for talking about stuff like this, not that bad when it comes to political stuff and stuff I regularly talk about on the program, because everything I do here is improv. But when it comes to something that I'm not as good with, talking about media, it's going to be a little bit more shaky, but I hope you still enjoyed it. Anyway, One Piece, Luffy said ACAB, and also extends that to the broader government, not only of specific countries, but also the world. Because it would turn out, not only can pirates be bad people like Blackbeard, or good people like Luffy, so can the police, so can the military, so can the federal government. It is to say, however, I do think ACAB, like, by definition, is correct. All cops are bastards. There could be some people in the police, or in the case of this show, the media, that are trying to do good. The problem is, unless you are literally the leader of the institution, which so often you're not, you're going to have to follow the orders of the people above you, because that's how that system works. So if the people above you tell you to do something bad, if you don't do it, you're getting fired. So changing it from within, kind of difficult. You could be the most kind-hearted, good person by nature as you want to be in that institution, but as soon as you get an order to do some bad shit that you disagree with, the only way you remain good is by leaving. Which is why there are no good cops. The only good cops are people that used to be cops that have reformed. Anyway. Hello, everybody. I'm back. I am out of segment mode now.